Well, our top focus on Newsnight is where is Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei at a time when there's a slew of warnings from the United States of America. We will now take you through the 3 top possible scenarios. Remember, viewers, these are AI-generated images of the possible outcomes and scenarios if US attacks Iran. Let's take you through them. First up, the first scenario, if US attacks Iran. Of course, this is Iran will retaliate. The Supreme Leader, as you can see, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, will stay back in Iran and will perhaps prepare to lead the complete operation against the United States of America while staying in Iran. Remember, these are AI-generated images, and we've conceptualized this image of Khamenei in a war room when US attacks Iran, and perhaps Khamenei then planning the way forward. Well, the next possible scenario, scenario number 2, is the fact that Khamenei takes shelter in a bunker along with his entourage, that's Abbas Araghchi, and even the Iranian Supreme Leader at a time when US attacks Iran. We have perhaps conceptualized, generated this AI image of the second scenario because remember last year during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, Khamenei was evacuated to an underground bunker in northeast Tehran. And this was hours after Israel began its strikes. Hence, this is a highly possible scenario number 2. Moving on. The last scenario is that possibly Khamenei flees to Russia. He leaves Iran if US attacks the country and he flees to Russia. This, of course, at a time we are bringing you this AI-generated image of the third scenario because we've seen how Russia has openly come out in support of Iran. And just a few days ago, Moscow also released a statement saying that there will be consequences if US attacks Iran. Hence, these are the top 3 possible scenarios, and these are all AI-generated images that we are getting you. Let's now take a look at what is on ground situation with massive protests and US intervention threat looming. The question is the time up for Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Our next report telling you more.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has survived where many around him have not. Assassination attempts, mysterious deaths, and targeted killings have hollowed out his inner circle. And today, questions are growing. Is his era entering its final phase? From the earliest days of the Islamic Republic, survival, not popularity, has shaped his rule. And Ali Khamenei knows he's a target. In 1981, an assassination attempt nearly killed him. A bomb hidden inside a tape recorder exploded during his speech, leaving him permanently paralyzed on one side, damaging his arm, vocal cords and lungs. Although Khamenei survived, but others did not. Later in the same month, when explosions occurred on the 27th of June, a huge bombing at the headquarters of the Islamic Republican Party in Tehran killed over 70 people, including many prominent figures, most notably Ayatollah Beheshti, the IRP's Secretary General and Iran's Chief Justice. That moment marked the beginning of an ultra-secure leadership, one built on fear, intelligence control, and absolute loyalty. Over the decades, Iran entered a shadow war. Israel and Iran's adversaries began systematically targeting figures close to the Supreme Leader. Nuclear scientists, IRGC commanders, and intelligence officers were assassinated, often in high secure zones. Each killing exposes cracks in Iran's internal security shield. The biggest blow came in 2020. Qasem Soleimani, Khamenei's most trusted military commander, was killed in a US drone strike in Baghdad. Soleimani's death was more than just symbolic for Khamenei. It removed the Supreme Leader's most effective enforcer across the region. Since then, attacks have continued. Senior IRGC figures and advisors linked to Khamenei have been killed in Syria, Iran, and beyond. In June 2025, a top advisor of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Ali Shamkhani, had died from wounds sustained in Israel's initial wave of airstrikes. Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, commander of the IRGC Aerospace Force, who was responsible for Iran's missile and drone operations, was also killed in these airstrikes. Amir Ali Hajizadeh, the brains behind Iran's drone and missile arsenal, was also killed. Iran lost most of its senior architects of military operations. At 85, Khamenei is increasingly isolated. His trusted loyalists are fewer, succession is unclear, and fear has replaced unquestioned authority. He's facing his toughest chapter yet: internal dissent, succession uncertainty, and international confrontation are converging at once. At the same time, external pressure is also mounting. US President Donald Trump has issued blunt warnings to Iran's leadership, signaling tougher consequences for defiance. From a revolutionary survivor to one of the world's most powerful unelected leaders, Ali Khamenei's grip has endured for over 3 decades. The question now, how long can it hold? For Iran's supreme leader, survival itself may now be the final battle. With Varsha Tripathi, Bureau Report, NDTV.
In its 46 years of existence, the Islamic Republic of Iran has 2 supreme leaders. For the first 10 years, the leader and ideologue of the revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and on his death in 1989, his ardent follower, Ali Khamenei. Our next report telling you who really is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Take a look.
Mentored by Ayatollah Khamenei in revolutionary ideology, Ali Khamenei was the natural successor. And Khamenei largely continued his predecessor's vision in the shaping of both his domestic and foreign policy decisions. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is committed to ruling under Islamic law, with power concentrated in the clergy. He remains steadfast in his opposition to Western powers and is intent on exporting this ideology across the region. Born in the city of Mashhad in Iran's Khorasan province, Sayyid Ali Hosseini Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was the 5th child born into an ordinary pious cleric family. The young Ali went to a maktab, or a religious school, in his hometown. When he turned 18, to further his theological studies, he first went to Najaf in Iraq and later to Qom in Iran. It was in Qom where Khamenei studied under Ayatollah Khomeini from 1958 to 1964, developing a relationship with the religious leader that would change the course of Iran. In the years between 1963 and 1979, Khamenei was arrested several times for spreading anti-Shah sentiments while giving lectures and sermons across the country. In 1976, he was exiled from Iran, but continued to lay the groundwork for the revolution abroad. He eventually returned to Iran in 1978. After the revolution, Ali Khamenei held various positions in the newly formed Islamic Republic, including president, before taking power in 1989 with the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. Very little is known about Khamenei's personal life. Khamenei has not granted a single personal interview to any media outlet, foreign or domestic. Nor has he hosted a single press conference since taking office in 1989. A rare 1993 remote interview of his wife confirmed that he is married with 6 children. Ali Khamenei is the longest surviving leader in the Middle East. Despite the political forces that have opposed him throughout his tenure,
حالا غیر از اینکه خود من حقیقتا لایق این مقام نیستم و این رو بنده میدونم.
Iran's supreme leader has proven to be exceptional at utilizing political power, religious influence, and military control to consolidate power and strengthen his regime.
And well, to decode all that's happening in Iran and the way forward, I have with us Dr. Kamran Bukhari, Senior Director at the New Lines Institute for Strategy and Policy in Washington, D.C. He's a geopolitical intelligence analysis specialist. Welcome to NDTV, Dr. Bukhari. Before I ask you about Khamenei and its whereabouts, I want you to first share your insights on the current situation. US has sent warnings, multiple warnings to Iran, and Tehran, on the other hand, has clearly outlined that they will set the region on fire. They've warned the neighboring countries of retaliation if US attacks Iran. The million-dollar question, Dr. Kamran, is that will US attack Iran, or at this point of time, are we just seeing power tactics by both the sides?
Well, thank you for having me, Rahisha. Look, I think we need to move away from the rhetoric and the bluster. That's just typical of the Iranians. We've seen their actual behavior in the past on several occasions where when they try to retaliate, they actually telegraph it in advance. So I don't expect anything so bombastic or dramatic in the region. But the big question is for the Trump White House is to how to calibrate that kinetic action that will actually resolve this problem. So the basic model is Venezuela, where the regime is still there and all you've done is taken out the person who was an obstacle. And so I think whatever action that the United States government takes will be designed to weaken the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and Khamenei himself, and creating a situation in which a loose coalition of pragmatists led by Artesh, the regular armed forces, could stabilize the situation, engage in policies that can placate the masses and also be in keeping with American interests. That's the strategy broad. Now, is it going to be easy to do that? No, on the contrary, it is very risky.
Right, Dr. Kamran, you say that perhaps the outlook, the next steps by the United States of America would be to dethrone, if I may, the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Just a follow-up question on that. At this point of time, what options does Iran have if US does attack Iran or perhaps dethrone Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? And where do you think the Iranian Supreme Leader is at this point of time?
So look, I don't think it's a dethroning. I think the reason I say that is because I don't think Khamenei is that powerful. He's the figurehead, but power over the past several decades devolved to the IRGC. So he's the symbol of the regime. He's very old. I just can't imagine that he is actively directing everything. As for his whereabouts, I think he is, as we say in the United States, at an undisclosed location because of the circumstances. But look, the issue right now is how do you shake up the system to where you get behavioral change from this regime? Because collapsing the regime can create a much bigger mess that the United States is not interested in.
Right. You speak of how do you shake up the system, which is what the US perhaps is also thinking about. But I also want to ask you about the protests that are happening in Iran. It's different because this time around the bazaris, which are the traditional merchants, are also a part of these protests, which were perhaps the backbone of Khamenei and his entourage. So with all that's happening, the US intervention, where do you see these protests heading to?
So look, the protests are not going to stop, in my opinion, because what happens is that the masses see the weakness of the regime. And so it's like, how can they apply more pressure? Can they hold the line? Obviously, they're faced with lots of brutality and repression. And that normally tends to sort of scare people away from the streets. But I think the situation is so fluid and so widespread that I don't think that these protests are going to end. Even if there was sort of like a dip in the intensity, they may come back with another trigger, because we've been seeing a buildup over the years.
Right.
What's happening today isn't just came out of nowhere.
Right, Dr. Kamran, my last question to you. With both the sides perhaps seeing battle ready at this point of time, we also have other countries passing out statements, for example, Russia, saying that there will be consequences if US does go forward and attack Iran. How do you see all of this impacting West Asia at this point of time?
A great question. I don't think that the Russians are in any situation to intervene. I think that they have their hands full with Ukraine, a problem of their own making, and they're hurting under sanctions. Their economy is not doing well. So, yes, these are the things that you say because you can't do anything about it. I think the Chinese will also largely stay out of it because they're reaching and their own understanding with the United States on issues that matter more to them than this. So, and as for the regional stakeholders, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Pakistan, and the Central Asian states, they are obviously going to be taken into confidence as and when needed, because everybody wants to see this thing not get out of hand.
Right, Dr. Kamran, thank you so much for joining us here on NDTV and sharing your insights with us on this. All right, let's tell you more. But before we tell you about other big statements that Trump has been getting every day, let's tell you more about what is actually happening when you talk about US and Iran. Both the sides have given out statements. Iran says that we will defend our country and against any kind of foreign interference. Well, the US and Iran standoff has now entered a dangerous new territory. In a rare and massive operation, American forces struck key Iranian nuclear sites. That's last June. That's during the Iran-Israel war, which lasted for about 12 days. Back then, those strikes prompted sharp warnings from Tehran and escalating global concern. And looking at where things stand today, here's a report on what actually happened last year. Take a look.
In the early hours of June 22, 2025, US military forces launched a precision strike against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. The operation, called Operation Midnight Hammer, used a combination of long-range B-2 Spirit stealth bombers and submarine-launched Tomahawk cruise missiles in what Pentagon officials called a deliberate and precise strike.
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror.
It was the largest operational deployment of B-2 bombers in US history, with 7 stealth bombers flying more than 18 hours and refueling in mid-air to reach Iranian airspace undetected. The bombers delivered multiple bunker busters specifically intended to destroy deep buried enrichment infrastructure. More than 24 cruise missiles supplemented the aerial assault, hitting key nuclear work sites. Hours after the operation concluded, Trump took to social media and television to defend the action. He declared that US forces had completely and totally obliterated Iran's key nuclear sites, and also warned that Tehran must now seek peace instead of escalation.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight.
In the days leading up to the strikes, Donald Trump publicly signaled a hard line against Tehran's nuclear ambitions. Trump had repeatedly insisted Iran cannot be allowed to possess nuclear weapons.
It's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is
not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Iran's leadership denounced the strikes. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei described the strikes as a big mistake by the US and rejected claims that Tehran's nuclear program was crippled.
به مراکز هسته‌ای ما حمله کردن که البته این در خور پیگیری جزایی در دادگاه‌های بین‌المللی است به طور مستقل.
Khamenei pledged that punishment continues for perceived enemies and vowed a strong response, signaling Iran's intent to resist foreign pressure and intervention. The US-Iran confrontation has now reached a new level of intensity, with regional and global powers closely watching each development. Bureau Report, NDTV.
On that note, we slip into a very short break, but come right back. Lots of time for you here on NDTV 24/7.